The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers is the organization that represents Canada's upstream oil and natural gas producers. Now, they've long been an invaluable partner of the Canadian Chamber in pressing for a successful, innovative, and socially responsible oil and gas sector in Canada. Personally, I was delighted earlier this year when CAPP announced that Lisa Baiton, who's a respected senior executive with a broad experience in both the public and private sectors, would become CAPP's sixth CEO as of May 2nd of this year. Lisa has truly hit the ground running, providing a clear vision of the role that this vital sector can play in meeting the needs of Canada and the world at such a critical time. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Perrin. I just wish I could be there in person.
Me too, next year for sure. Well, let's get right to it. We've been hearing a lot lately about the energy crisis in Europe with shortages of natural gas and oil, and we're seeing our own energy costs rising. How can Canada's oil and gas sector help? And what role does the federal government need to play in all of this?
Well, I think we can all agree that the rules of geopolitics are changing on a daily, almost even hourly basis. And, Canada has a real opportunity here to play a major role as a global leader in providing safe and environmentally responsible energy. Some people are calling today's energy reality globally as an opportunity for Canada. I might suggest that it's actually an obligation. Our allies and our trading partners are working to replace their reliance on Russian oil and gas with safer, secure, and lower carbon sources of energy. And we have both. We have both the supply, we have the industry know-how on how to contribute to that effort. And, our oil and natural gas, we should be really proud of it. It has the highest environmental and human rights standards anywhere in the world. So it just makes sense that Canadian energy should be part of the solution. And not just on a short-term basis, but in the medium and the long term as well, because oil and natural gas is going to be needed for years to come. And just let me add that while we are grappling with the dual challenge of energy security and the environment, and dealing with that dual challenge isn't easy, in my opinion, it is quite solvable. So we are happily working with the federal and provincial governments on policy, and at an individual company level, we are working to drive down our emissions profile, which we've been doing for years, so that we can contribute both to energy security while contributing to GHG emissions reductions.
I want to come back in a minute to how we reconcile the need to fight climate change with the need for affordable energy security. But perhaps I can drill down a little bit with regard to Canada's role in exporting and what our role should be, and also how we get there from here. When I was in Berlin in June, I met, along with others, with Chancellor Scholz of Germany. And he was very direct in saying to me that Germany would like to have access to Canadian LNG. Yet critics have pointed out that without additional pipelines and LNG terminals, Canada today can do very little to alleviate the current energy crisis. And they say that the business case is weak to ship natural gas to Europe, and therefore that we shouldn't pretend that Canada can play a significant role in global energy security. What's your reaction to these suggestions?
Well, I would say first, Canada does have limited export capacity, but, I would follow that on by saying that anything Canada exports today has a meaningful contribution to energy security. Canada exports more oil and natural gas than we use, which in turn benefits our economy and our trading partners. And, folks might not know, but nearly all of our oil and natural gas exports today go through the United States, which in turn enables the US to export to Europe and others. So, we do rank among the largest oil and natural gas exporting nations today. So we are playing a meaningful role in North American energy security directly, and global energy security indirectly. I just, would add, Perrin, that, energy security is not a short-term challenge, and it's highly correlated with national security, food security, and other forms of security that we all have come to treasure. And, Canada, we have a relatively small population, but we also have the third largest oil reserves on the planet, larger than even Russia's. And we also have some of the most prolific and economic natural gas fields in the world. So Canada has even greater potential to become a preferred global supplier of responsibly produced energy. And I think as capital leaves the energy market in Russia and potentially other authoritarian regimes, Canada can proudly offer a safe landing for that investment. But to your point, we can't be passive about this. We constantly have to look above the parapet and consider Canada's competitiveness on the global stage. We just look at what the US did recently with their CCUS ITC credit. And, we just have to make sure that we're keeping all of that global innovation and technology thought leadership here in Canada and all of those benefits here at home, while contributing both to energy security and GHG emissions reduction.
You no doubt are aware of the speech that was given earlier this week in Washington by the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrysler Freeland, where she pointed out that during the COVID crisis, European producers for vaccines and for other devices continued to supply Canada at a critical time. And she said, we haven't forgotten that. And we recognize that energy and other assistance is critical for Europe at this time. And Canada will play its role by expediting projects and by trying to assist in any way we can. Do you see a critical role for Canada to play?
Well, again, as I said, we're well positioned to be a critical global leader for safe, secure, probably the most responsibly produced oil and gas in the world, and contribute to both energy security and concurrently reduce GHG emission reductions.
And any exports that we put onto the global markets affects the global supply in an economy which is truly global in its nature. Mm-hmm. So that even exports to the United States can be of assistance to our allies around the world.
Absolutely.
Let's come back to the question of climate change and energy security. As everybody is aware, the world's having to deal with two crises simultaneously. The first is a climate crisis whose effects are already evident, and a crisis, secondly, in the supply of affordable energy, which is so important to support people around the world. You say that Canada should be increasing its oil and natural gas production and exports, but how can the country actually do that and hit our climate commitments? In other words, how can we justify growing oil and gas production in the face of growing climate change challenges?
Well, let me first start by restating what I said earlier, which is, dealing with the dual challenges of climate change and energy security is difficult, but, I truly believe that they can be dealt with concurrently, and it is solvable. I would also just say, there's consensus that producing lower emission natural gas and oil will give Canada and the Canadian oil and gas industry a competitive advantage in global markets. All credible forecasts indicate that there's going to be world demand for oil and gas for the foreseeable future. I think the International Energy Agency recently said they see oil demand reaching over 100 million barrels a day and staying there for years. And natural gas is expected to be one of the fastest growing sources of energy for the next decade. And, I'd like to point out that Canada's natural gas is already produced with some of the lowest emissions in the world, and our industry is continually striving to get better. And on that point, I just want to point out that our members are investing more in innovation and technology and driving harder than most any other nation to lower the emission intensity of our production. But getting back to our last comment on international markets, again, it's important for us to keep a finger on the pulse on that. In Europe, we see plans for some 20 liquefied natural gas imports terminals. In China, the top the world's top liquefied natural gas buyer. They now have 10 new import terminals expected to come online next year. So there's a massive and growing market that is looking for safe, secure, and responsibly produced energy, which Canada has in absolute abundance. So using Canadian produced resources, again, we can do both. We can bring down GHG emissions related to oil and natural gas, and we can deal with energy security and help our trading partners and allies around the world.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. As I simply want to underscore what you said at the outset, and that's that this is much more than an opportunity for Canada. It's an obligation for us to step up and to assist the rest of the world in meeting its needs for energy security. It's something that contributes both to global security in a physical sense and also to its economic security as well. And Canada has a key role to play. We're looking forward to working with CAPP in trying to achieve those goals.
That's terrific. I look forward to working with you, Perrin, and your team.